2022 Youth 7 and Youth 20 Youth Summits are engaging week-long events that bring together rising leaders from the G7 and G20 countries, respectively, to develop policy solutions and debate various global challenges they would like to see G7 leaders take forward. The list of policy recommendations, known as a communique, is announced publicly at the Y7 Summit and presented to world leaders as part of the official G7 Summit.
Now, youth delegates of the 2022 Youth 7 Summit mostly came from G7 countries, namely United States, Germany, Japan, UK, Italy, Canada, France, and representatives of the 4 partner countries such as Indonesia, Senegal, South Africa, and Ukraine.
Now, as we all know, Indonesia plays a pivotal role in the implementation of the summit through its strategic position as the G20 Presidency host in 2022. 4 young talents were selected by the Youth and Sports Ministry to represent Indonesia in the summit, which was held from May the 16th to 20th, 2022 in Berlin, Germany.
The Indonesian youth delegates were Amira Bilqis for Sustainable and Green Planet, Muhammad Radian Pasopati Pribadi for Economic Transformation for Shared Progress, Anak Agung Mia Intentilia, who became the head of Delegation Resilience of Democracies, and Raihan Aryatama for Global Health and Solidarity. They have attended meetings on their respective policy virtually with delegates from other countries before negotiating face-to-face in Berlin, Germany.
Yep, and to find out more about the messages and keynotes that our delegates delivered in the 2022 Youth 7 Summit regarding policy solutions to current global issues, let's meet one of the Indonesian delegates, Amira Bilqis, and 2022 Youth 20 Indonesia co-chair, Gracia Paramitha, joining live with us this morning. Hello guys, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi. Gracia and also Amira, thank you so much for joining us in the studio.
Thank you so much for inviting us.
Thank you for inviting us.
One of
Of
the
course, we're very
achievements.
excited. I mean, they're color coordinated. Love the tenun.
And we're a part of the youth. I want to say myself that I'm part of youth, so we want to know more about this.
Yes, you are, Carol. Now, I want to go to Gracia first.
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit about Youth 20 Summit and how it correlates with the Y7?
Sure. So this is actually the first time in history that Y20 Indonesia or Indonesia was invited to the Y7 summit, as we are not the member of Y7 or G7. If I may tell a little bit, I was used to become the Indonesian delegate to the Y8 summit 2013. So that was the last time Indonesia became the country partner to the Y7, and now we made a new history that we did synergy between Y7 and Y20 summit through the substances, through the collaboration of potential actions, and of course about the communique. So from Y7 communique, it will be aligned, or we're trying to discuss it further, how Y7 communique can be strategically, supporting the Y20 communique, and even from G7 leaders also get more collaboration or cooperation with G20 Indonesia Presidency.
Now, if you're seeing the Youth Summit nowadays, I mean, you've been a part of it, I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure, for a long journey. How do you think the initiative has been ongoing until the present day, Gracia?
I think this is a very wonderful moment, I would say, because it's not just from the youth perspective or initiatives that brought up all these collaborations.
Correct.
Because the G20 Indonesia itself also did more initiatives to the G7, so it reflects to other engagement groups. So in G7, they have Women 7, Think 7, Labor 7, and Youth 7 at least, and all of them already work together with the engagement groups of the G20 Indonesia. So we're trying to give message that G20 is the enlargement of G7, and we still can, hand in hand, we can, try to support each other, especially during this difficult pandemic and difficult crisis in the world.
Correct. Everything is just very integrated, and hopefully the key messages that you will like to send, will be heard and also going to be implemented and being discussed during the G20 presidency that will be hosting right here in Indonesia. Now, there were 4 proposed positions from Indonesia, such as Sustainable and Green Planet, Economic Transformation, Resilience of Democracies, and Global Health and Solidarity. Can you please tell us the backbone story behind this proposed position?
Okay, so those priorities are becoming part of the Y7 summit, while the Y20 Indonesia has also 4 priorities, which are youth employment, digital transformation, sustainable and livable planet, and diversity and inclusion. Surprisingly, we both got very similar topic, like for example, the Sustainable Livable Planet. Of course, it's very aligned to the Green and Sustainable Planet Track 1 for Y7. And then the Track 2, Economic Transformation, they talk more about how the economic recovery and also youth employment, which is also aligned to the Y20. And we also promoted how the social safety net to young workers, to the informal sectors, and also the rise of social entrepreneurs. And then the third one, in Y7, they talk about resilience of democracy, which is more about like how the education becomes more universal and more open to any level of youth groups. And we are also talking about the inclusiveness, how the diversity of culture, the identities of youth groups can hand in hand and get more access to the education.
Yes.
And global health solidarity in Track 4 Y7, I think that's also still aligned with the Track 4 about diversity inclusion, because we also promote how the partnership, how the global partnerships can be stronger. As we also have the G20 Indonesia theme, Recover Together, Recover Stronger. And there is also another interesting principle that in G7 policy brief, they also promoted Stronger Together, which is very similar to the principle of recovery, Recover Together, Recover Stronger. So I guess the global partnership from Y7 can be like stimulation to the Y20 and other engagement groups that we should work together, not just among youth itself, but with the women group, with the labor, with the think tanks, science, and other engagement groups. So the more inclusive network we build, the better economic recovery, the better situation that we have now, and of course the integration is very important.
Yes.
I'm curious, so what's the process of building that communique is like? How long has it been discussed, and who decided on what goes in, and who decided on just leave it out?
Okay, so I think we have different policy or different mechanism. In Y7, they have their own kind of debate or policy negotiation process, which would be like much shorter than the Y20, because in Y20, we already started the preparation of substance since last year, in February until November, and then we finalized into 4 topics. And then in January 2022, Y20 Indonesia just already launched the white paper of Y2022, because that can be good reference to everybody who would like to know more about global issues of young people in the G20, including the survey of 5,700 participants of young people from 19 countries of G20. And then from February until July, early July, that will be the pre-negotiation process. So they have to make 0 drafts, something like a 0 draft. Each delegate from each countries can propose some policies or even like abstract for 1 page, and then they can discuss it together and make a draft to do the voting. And I think Amira can share more how the voting process in the Y7 summit, which is very interesting because, you know, Indonesia just became the partner country, and the voting process can be including these partners. That's not usual, I would say, that can be done to the negotiation process of G7.
I guess
there's a lot of
it's
work.
very legitimate.
Yeah, very legitimate. A lot
It
of
takes
work
months.
involved in this.
Yeah.
Take months to do this.
Now, I want to go to Amira. Can you explain to us about the voting process that Gracia just mentioned, and in regards to the message from your proposal in Sustainable and Green Planet?
Okay, so what we are doing during the negotiation process, we have working meetings. I think the total is about 10, which is 5 virtually and then 5 when we are here in Berlin. So it was very exciting, and the voting sessions was really intense as well, because as you say, every youth from G7 countries and as well as partner countries is very keen to advocate this because after the voting process, we are directly handed it out directly in Berlin in the venue to the Chancellor of Germany, Olaf Scholz. So that's very unusual opportunity for us as a youth to be part of the policymaking process in the developed nations.
Right, and of course we would like to say congratulations and thank you for your service, to become the delegates and be the ambassador of Indonesia, especially in the youth. Now, Gracia was talking about the goal of the Youth 7 is to develop policies for, global challenges. Now, you were talking about, you were the delegate for Sustainable Green Planet. So what kind of derivatives and also programs to what you proposed?
So there are 3 proposals that we are going for the Sustainable and Green Planet track. So the first one is we call the G7 leaders to uphold the common but differentiated responsibilities principle, in which that they need to know whatever target they are taking as well as establish, they need to know that developing countries would need to take more times and have a limited capabilities to come up and to align with what we have in the global stage. But at the same time as well, we are also calling the G7 leaders that the energy transitions that they are part of the agenda is also to assist developing countries, including Indonesia, to have an assistance in financial as well as technology transfer that we are having. And in the case of that, we also try to remind our leaders as well as the G7 leaders that the reskilling for youth as a future workforce is very important, because life would actually not be the same anymore with the energy transitions going on. So reskilling, upskilling of the current existing human resources need to be accelerated soon.
Their proposal is in line with President Jokowi's speech on the COP26.
Yes.
So that's great to hear. And I want to go to Gracia now.
Yes.
You were invited to give a keynote speech at the Youth 7 Summit 2022. So what are your key messages and aspirations to young generations worldwide?
So there are 3 main points that I delivered during that speech. The first is how the global challenges can be solved through the integrated approach. So the way we do the synergy between Y7 and Y20 hopefully can inspire the other engagement groups or even wider connection or network, even through the United Nations, for example, or ASEAN or other regional groups, that we need more open-minded openness of how to share and work together. And secondly, I also talk about and actually encourage young generation that we should move and act beyond the communique, because just statistically speaking, in Y7, I think they have got at least 16 communiques right now, because they started in 2006, while the Y20 started in 2010. So we got already 11 communiques, and some of them were just similar or repetitious recommendations, and some of them might be gone because there weren't any concrete commitments and implementations. So as the solution or alternative, from Y20 Indonesia, we also did innovation this year by creating Y20 Awards. So this is the first recognition and acknowledgement to global youth, not just the G20 youth, because we open it to the non-G20 countries that already consistently did projects or initiatives or activities related to youth employment or social entrepreneurship. And then they can also make any activity to the digitalization or circular economy and diverse cultures. So yesterday we just announced 20 finalists, and I think this can be good project-based outcome. So that's one of the example how we follow up and move forward beyond the communique itself, and we can convince the G20 and G7 leaders that young generation are not just the object. We're not just, the ornament that attending the summit with a lot of attentions and exposures, but we do something, we work together, we can, cooperate and even make more initiatives, build friendship with the G7 leaders, with G20 leaders, and other stakeholders.
Right. And with that said, to Gracia and also to Amira, like we said, everything is very integrated now, especially with the youth or the Y7. You have proposals, you have programs, you have initiatives and whatnot. Now we know, G20, Indonesia will be hosting. So again, we have the highest platform right now. So what are the key messages that you want our leaders, and especially our president, to accept your initiatives, and also key message from the Youth 7? Maybe from Amira.
Yeah. So I definitely need to think that here we are at the Y7 communique. We really wanted this communique to be heard and aligned and advocate further in the G20's agenda, because that's very intercorrelated one another. And we also really want to call for everything that we did in the 4 tracks, and I hope later on, beyond that as well, we can actually have more collaborations as well with the other countries in the Y7 summits as
right. Well,
Yeah.
Gracia?
So following up with that, what Amira said, so from Y7 communique, we try to connect that with the initiatives that the Y20 Indonesia did, like for example through the Y20 Awards, make more initiatives, friendships, alignment with several ministries that relevant to the topics. And of course, we want to have more potential collaboration with other engagement groups, with Business 20, Women 20, Women 7, because this is the right time to, open the stakeholders' eyes that we cannot work alone. Most of the time in the history or previously, each engagement groups just, struggle and fight for their own ideas or their own agendas. Or maybe it's usually they just did joint statement. It's just about statement. We now have to get more concrete action. Just what the President Joko Widodo said. This G20 Indonesia presidency cannot be just a ceremony. It cannot be just words or commitments. We need to have and do more concrete deliverables, concrete outcomes and actions. So young people want to prove that we can do actions, we can even make more concrete outcomes and give some examples, best practices of the projects that we've done.
Correct. And with that said, before coming to the G20 presidency, you will be hosting the Youth 20 Summit in July. Can you tell us more about it before we conclude our discussion today?
Sure. So we still have 2 events left. This month, there will be pre-summit for the diversity and inclusion topic, and it will be in Manokwari on 18 until 19 of June. And that also happened hybrid, so people can also join virtually through our YouTube channel or the website. And then the big event will be in July, the Y20 Summit on 17 until 24th of July in Jakarta and Bandung. And of course, in the end, there will be a communique, Y20 communique, which will be delivered to the President Joko Widodo.
Right. So is the public going to know what the communique is about? Are you going to read it out? Or is it private?
It's usually, I think we try to create a new trend right now. So most of our events are now hybrid. We're trying to make it open and more accessible and inclusive.
Transparency, I guess.
Yes. So people can access the communique through online, through the website, and at least we put it like the online streaming while the communique or the closing ceremony of the Y20 Summit happens.
Amazing.
Right.
Okay.
A lot of work to be done, ladies, especially before we go to the G20 Summit.
Such an insightful discussion we have here today.
Yes.
Thank you, Gracia and Amira.
Thank you.
You're very thankful as
Awesome
well.
knowledge for the Y7.